Hi, hello, welcome to another math lesson. Today we're going to be talking about solving quadratics by completing the square. Let's get started. So during this lesson, you will learn how to solve for quadratics by completing the square. Last class we learned about, or last lesson, we learned about just solving quadratics by factoring. So now we're going to learn what happens when I can't factor something, and we have to be able to solve for it. So we use this when we cannot factor. Okay, so vocabulary, most of this is repeat. A quadratic is a polynomial in which the degree is 2, so that's like x squared. Trinomial is a polynomial with 3 terms, x squared plus 3x plus 4. To complete the square is to translate a quadratic into vertex form. That's key. They tell you what vertex form is. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. 0 is another name for an x-intercept, which is where the graph crosses or touches the x-axis. And the zero product property is a property that states that if 2 or more items are multiplied, they will equal 0. At least one of the terms has to equal 0. So 0 multiplied by anything will be 0. That's the thing that we're looking at. So remember, completing the squares, going from standard form to vertex form. We use this. Use when we cannot factor. Okay, so here's our steps. And we're going to kind of mix this up a little bit. We're going to first set y equal to 0. That solve for x is going to be number 8. So first we're going to set y equal to 0. We're going to move all terms without an input variable to the side with the output. 3, we're going to divide through by the coefficient of a. 4, we're going to take half the coefficient of x. 5, we're going to square the result of step 3. And 6, we're going to add the result of step 4 to both sides. 7, we'll complete the square by factoring the squared variable side. And 8, solve for x. If you want to write down those steps, pause the video or go into the PowerPoint saved in Canvas. Okay, so solve by completing the square. Let's look at this. My very first step is I'm going to set y equal to 0, because that's what I'm trying to find, is what happens when y is 0. Okay, so I can't factor this, so we're just going to complete the square first. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I get 2 equals x squared plus 6x. Now what we're going to try and do is we're going to try to make this right side a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this positive 6x, or this positive 6, divided by 2. We get 3. Then I take that 3 and square it, and I get 9. We're going to take that 9 and add that to both sides. Because what we did is we just created a perfect square on that right side. But I can't just add 9 to one side. I have to add it to both to keep it balanced. So I get 11 equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now this is a perfect square. So I can say, on the right side, I can say x plus 3 squared. I got this plus 3 because of that 3 right there. Okay, now all we have to do is solve for this x. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root, I have to say plus or minus the square root, because I don't know if both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative in that square. Equals x plus 3, and then we subtract 3 from both sides. And we get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 11 equals x. And so we can write this as negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 11 comma 0, because we know solutions need to be in coordinate points. Or I could say negative 3 plus the square root of 11 comma 0 and negative 3 minus the square root of 11 comma 0. Both of those would be correct answers. All right, now I want you to try one. So we're going to set that equal to 0, x squared plus 4x plus 1. I cannot factor this. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I want to make that right side a perfect square. So I'm going to take that 4, divide it by 2, take that 2 and square it, and I get 4, and I'm going to add that 4 to both sides. So now I get 3 equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. I just created a perfect square on that right side, so I can factor it into be x plus 2 squared. Remember, I get a plus 2 here because I got a plus 2 there. Now, I need to take the square root, because we're solving for x here. So I'm going to take that square root just to make sure we have it gone. So I get plus or minus the square root of 3 equals x plus 2. And I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 equals x. So I know that my solution is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 comma 0. Alright, there's my solution for that one. Well, what happens when a is not equal to 1? Let's look at that. It's very similar. We're just going to divide through by that 2. Okay. So I get 0 equals 2x squared minus 8x minus 3. Okay. So I'm going to add that 3 to both sides because I can't factor this. So I get 3 equals 2x squared minus 8x. Well, I need this right here to be a 1. So I'm going to divide everything by that 2 to get rid of it so that it is a 1. So I get 3 halves equals x squared. Negative 8x divided by 2 is negative 4x. Okay, now we can complete the square. We're going to make that perfect square on that right side. So I'm going to take negative 4 divided by 2. That negative 2 comes down. I square it. I get a positive 4. And we're going to add that 4 to both sides. And I get, I'm going to convert this into fractions so I can combine these fractions. So I get 8 halves plus 3 halves equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay. Now I'm going to combine my left side and factor my right. I get a 11 halves equals, and I can factor this, I get x minus 2. Notice it's a negative 2 here because I got a negative 2 here. Now I can take the square root of this, and I get plus or minus the square root of 11 halves equals x minus 2. I can add 2 to both sides. I get 2 plus or minus the square root of 11 halves equals x. And my solution would be 2 plus or minus the square root of 11 halves comma 0 would be my 2 coordinate points. There's my answer. Okay. Now here's a now you try one. I want to see how you go about this. There's definitely many ways to go about this one. So I get 0, I'm going to set it equal to 0, 5x plus 20x minus 60. I'm going to do it a little bit different here. I noticed I can divide by 5. Everything's factorable by 5. So I'm going to do that very first. That's totally fine to do. 0 divided by 5 is 0. We get x squared, 20 divided by 5 gives me a 4x minus 12. Okay, now I can just go on with just how it's typically done. Adding 12 to both sides. I get 12 equals x squared plus 4x. Now we want to make a perfect square here. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Take that 2 down, square it, we get a 4. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So we get 16 equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. And now we can factor that right side, and it's going to be x plus 2 squared. Remember, we get that 2 because of this 2 right here. We're going to take the square root on both sides. But something cool happens here is plus or minus the square root of 16 give me a plus or minus 4. We actually have the square root of 16. It's a perfect square. Equals x plus 2. Now we can subtract 2 from both sides. And I get 2 plus or minus 4 equals x. So I'm going to do 2 plus 4 equals x. 2 minus 4 equals x. So 2 plus 4 is a 6. 2 minus 4 is a negative 2. So I know I have 6, comma 0, and negative 2, comma 0. There's my answers. Okay, if you have any questions about that lesson, please come and talk to me or a tutor, and we'd be happy to help you. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.